we began this series a week ago here with Naya to talk about various issues that she's faced as an international rugby player. She has picked the topics, and this week it's going to be about body image. Now, before we go any further, Naya, I look at you as a young woman and a very fit act and very strong athlete.
Hmm.
Right. You're incredibly powerful. You've very strong legs. You're very fast, as we know. You used to be a
Yeah,
sprinter,
thank you.
so we know you
Hmm.
have speed. And I would imagine that you wouldn't have any problems about body image, but it seems that wasn't always the case.
Yeah. So now everybody's about fitness. Everybody wants to
Right.
be toned, everybody wants to have abs, female wise. But back in the day, like you can even look at the models back in the day, everything was about being as thin as you possibly could. And it wasn't normal or ladylike for a woman to have muscles, especially the muscles that a lot of the women have today,
Hmm.
just working out regularly, daily, or being a professional athlete. Um, Growing up, it was like girls played with toys and dolls, and then the boys played outside and got dirty. But for me, it was both. So, like, we played with dolls, but we played with them outside on the driveway in the mud. So it was normal in my eyes to be a little rough around the edges, but still know that I was a female at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Um, just growing up, I was always interested, as I said, in playing football and playing with the boys, and I was very competitive and I wanted to be faster and stronger than them. But a lot of the times I was criticized not by like older people, but people my age, as in like, oh, you have muscles, you're too big to be a female. And a lot of the
Mm.
times you would get called like, oh, you look like a boy, or oh, you're a man. Like that was one of the main ones that I dealt with growing up, was like, oh, you're a man, you're a boy. So like I think that was something that I really struggled with growing up. And you might look at me now and be like, oh, she probably didn't have to deal with any type of criticism. She's probably one of the most confident people you can know. And now, yes, I am. I can say that. But growing up, I had to figure out a lot of stuff about myself and the things that I was hearing, and just taking that and using it to make myself stronger mentally. Because hearing that stuff when you're younger, you don't know if what they're saying is right or wrong. Um, you have these stereotypes that you really don't learn about until you get older, because when you're born, those things aren't in your head. It's you just
Mhm.
you are who you are. And I remember growing up and my mom would always say, "Oh, you had little muscles since you were 2 years old." And like I've seen pictures of me as a baby and I was more toned than regular children. So it's in my genetics and it's something that wasn't gonna go away.
Mhm.
So being able to take something that I was born with and show the world that it was okay, just my little world, to show them like, if you think I look like a man, that's totally fine. I think I look gorgeous, and you just have to embrace it, type of thing. So like growing up, I got teased all the time for looking like a man because I had muscles, or because I wanted to play with the boys, and because a lot of the times I was beating the guys. And whenever somebody hurts your ego, you always have to retaliate. So I think that was one of the main things the younger boys were going through, was this little girl is faster than me and she's stronger than me and she's a
Mhm.
female. And based on what they watch on TV, it's not supposed to be that way. So in their head, they're like, their pride is hurt. So one of their retaliations is to put somebody else down. And that was my situation in my case, where, oh, you're a man, or oh, you have a deep voice. And growing up hearing, oh, you're a man, you have a deep voice, it was like, okay, what do I do to make myself be more likable or be more thought of as a female? So it was like, oh, I'm going to try to make my voice sound softer. Or, oh, I'm going to wear long sleeve shirts so that you can't see how toned I am. And things like that is not something good that somebody who's very young should have to go through. But I would say now that it gave me some very tough skin, and
Hmm.
now there's nothing that anybody can say to me that could make me challenge how I feel about myself. I tell myself every day, like, you're one of the most beautiful women in the world. And I say that in the humblest way possible because if you don't believe it, nobody else will.
Hmm.
So just, yeah, just taking all that criticism and like, I'm really proud of myself for using it to make me stronger because everybody isn't able to do that. And a lot of people struggle with that and are in depressed situations because they weren't able to handle the criticism or didn't have the support to be able to get through it. So to be able to say that I was able to use that negative information and turn it into something positive, which is myself and how I feel about myself and the confidence I have in myself, regardless of what somebody thinks about me, um, and the support that I got from my family and friends on the daily about how beautiful they thought I was. I mean, like, that's awesome to be able to have that growing up because I'm sure everybody deals with bullying and everybody doesn't handle it the same way.
And as a young girl growing up, we often hear about how, and you mentioned it, some young girls don't handle that well, don't have the support, feel very intimidated, very bullied, as you said, and
Mm-hmm.
also it affects your confidence, not just as a young girl, but as an athlete in everything you do, right? I mean, you're going through those formative years when you have to develop self-confidence, and it has to come from within, right? It's not something people can say to you, oh, you should feel confident, you look fine. Well,
Yeah,
it's got to, as you've proven,
you got
Naya,
to believe it.
you've got to believe it, it has to come from within. So how does this impact you at that time when you were younger? How did it impact your confidence as an athlete?
Um, I think sports is the reason why it was easier to get through those comments because in sports, female or male, like you were supposed to be fast, you were supposed to be strong. And so in that environment, I was able to embody all the things that I was born with. And just to see that, oh, there's other females like me who are
Mhm.
toned and muscular and are proud to be so. And just having like my coaching staff growing up, just always like, oh, like you're like they would say the same comments of, oh, you're so strong and you're so big, but they meant it in a positive way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then I could see the positive from the negative. And just growing up in sports, like that's when I started getting praised for the way that I looked
Mhm.
because it had a correlation with how I performed. So in track and field, which I did from seventh grade to about 12th grade, um, it was about being toned and having strong muscular legs so that you could run faster, or tone arms so that you could pump harder. Um, it was important. So since it was important in sports and I was a very competitive person, it became important to me to look muscular. Whereas growing up, it was, oh, you want to look petite in your dress, or you want to make sure you're smaller than the guys and nicer and more sensitive and timid, where that was not the child that I was at all. So I think it affected me, like I said, in a good way because I was able to use it for the betterment of myself. But it also just made me mentally strong, where being in the public light now, you have trolls on social media and things like that who will say negative things because they can.
Mhm.
So being able to ignore it, or even myself, like people will comment on some of the videos, oh, is that a man running? And I'm like, that's on compliment because in our world, regardless of equality and things like that, technically a man is faster than a woman. So for you to say that I look like a man, that means you think I'm running very, very fast. And that's a compliment. Running 33
Right.
kilometers, you know what I mean? So just being
Yeah.
able, and like on those comments like that, like for some of those people, you can ignore them, but some of them, like, I have no issues of calling them out and saying thank you. Like, that is a compliment. And there's nothing that you can say to hurt my feelings, because my confidence is already through the roof because of the things that I had to go through growing up, and the how strong my mental is about myself. And I mean, a lot of the girls, I'm sure, go through it, the trolling on social media, because social media is our access to everything right now. So I'm sure some of them struggle with that because maybe they didn't have to deal with it when they were younger, or maybe they did and just weren't able to cope with it as well. But yeah, now, like, being in the spotlight, you're more open to criticism from people all across the world. So you have to be mentally strong, because everybody's not going to tell you what you want to hear or the good things about you. Um, I remember hearing this quote where it was like, you can be the sweetest, yellowest, beautifulest pineapple, and there will be somebody who doesn't like pineapples. Like, everybody's not going to like you. So you have to know that. Um, you have to know yourself, and just don't let anybody change that image that you have of you that is hopefully very good, because everybody has flaws. You see, I got this big old pimple in the middle of my forehead. It's like, what can you do? You just got to roll with it and just keep living day by day, and just be happy, and be happy with the life you live and the body that you're in. So,
Well, you clearly exude confidence now. Confidence,
yeah.
not just as an athlete, because you found where you belong in the sport,
Mm,
and you've developed a confidence as a young woman now in your own athletic ability and your prowess, your development as a rugby player as well. All of those things have come together, and now you're quite confident in the way you project yourself there on social media in a way that is very strong, is very confident. And how do you balance that? Because as you just say, you're going to have trolls in social media. That's just the nature of
hmm
social media. How do you find now you have to balance it in a way that you will be respected for the way you project yourself as an athlete? Do you are you conscious about that, or do you just go about life now being yourself, and to heck with anybody and what they think now, because you're so self-confident and have that self-belief?
Um, so I think that's something I've dealt with, like, in the past year, of, because you're in the public eye, you can't say and do everything that you want to, because it's not always appropriate, whether you think it or not. So just one of the things I've been learning is that, yes, I have this self-confidence, but everybody might not that way. So just being aware of the things you say to people, where I may say a joke to somebody, and if they said it to me, I would be completely fine, but maybe they didn't take it the same way.
Hmm.
So just being aware of how outspoken I can be, and thinking of the other person and how they may take it before I say something. I've been learning to work with that and be more conscious about that, and about how other people may have grown up and the things that they have went through that I didn't experience or don't know about. Just being aware of the things that I say, and then especially on social media, you have the older crowd following you, but you also have very young kids following you.
Hmm.
So you just want to put off a good image for them, but also being true to yourself. You don't want to give a facade that isn't who you are, but you also don't want to put out a bad image and be a bad role model in their eyes. So just being weary of the things that I say on social media, how I say them, the pictures that I post, um, just being aware of that and making sure that it's something that's representable of myself, my family, my friends, and the team that I represent, which is USA Women's Rugby. I'm just trying to be a good role model in that way, because with social media, you are plastered all around the world, and people can find anything that they want about you. So just that transition from being able to do whatever you want and nobody know or nobody see besides the people around you, to being in the spotlight where everybody in the world can see what you say and do. Like, you just have to, it's like walking on eggshells. You have to be very careful, and yeah, just be very careful.
Yeah, you certainly do. You mentioned there being a role model now, and I wanted to go back to when you were growing up and you didn't have that self-confidence. Were there role models for you that were the kind of athlete that you wanted to become in terms of body image and self-confidence as an athlete? Did you have role models?
Um, Sports wise, I didn't growing up. But family wise, I had my brother who was also in sports. So just going to his football games and seeing the success he had, that competitiveness in me made me want to do the same thing, which is exactly what I did. I went into track and field and took it very seriously. But also another one of my role models was my mom, because the only reason we went to all my brother's football games was because my mom was 100% supporter, as she is of me and my sisters and all the sports that we played as well. She was just big on us doing something that will benefit us in the future. Um, she didn't know how good of an athlete myself or my brother or my sisters would become, but I think she didn't really care about that. She just wanted to make sure we were having fun and that we probably had something to keep us out of trouble. And it also kept us healthy, because with sports, we were working out all the time. Um,
Mhm.
but I think just her supporting us with every single thing we wanted to do. It was never, oh, you need to do track and field, or, oh, you need to do cheerleading. It was, what do you want to do? We did soccer, we did cheerleading, we did track and field, we did flag football, we did powder puff, we did everything that you could think of. And it was because we had that support system, which was my mom, and she still supports all of us to this day. She comes to as many of my games in the States as she can, because she's still too scared to go out the country. But eventually I know she will, because that's how much of a supporter of her children that she is. And I just really look up to that, because she um, worked very hard to make sure that we could do everything that we wanted to do and that we had everything that we needed for the sports, because sports is not cheap at all. And I'm sure the prices are ridiculously expensive now. So just all the sacrifices she made for us, and is one of the main reasons why I'm here today. Like I said, I wanted to leave, but she told me, you can't, you need to stay. Like, that's how you can tell she has that competitive blood in her that she passed down to all of us. So I think her and my brother are one of my biggest role models, because those were the people I grew up with and seen be successful, whether in sports or just in life and being a mother.
Well, you mentioned last week now how there's been a bit of tough love there when you that crossroads in your career, and you did want to turn around and go home. And she said, "No, you've got to figure this out," which made you a stronger person, a stronger young woman, and an athlete too, and really put you on the road to where you are today. But at the same time, with that tough love, she's been so incredibly supportive. Obviously, your family has been as well. Not every young girl has that kind of support when they need it, when they're lacking that self-confidence, and they
Yeah.
may have issues about body image as well. They may feel they've been bullied, intimidated, and just lacking that self-confidence because they're much younger, just as you went through. What would you say to them?
Um, I would say just find all the things that you love about yourself and remind yourself about them every morning. So, like, one of the things I have is just a lot of sticky notes on my mirror, and it just says all the things that I love about myself and all the things that I want to improve about myself. And seeing those on the daily is just the reminder that you give yourself, because somebody else, like you said, you might not have that support system to give that to you. And we talked about, you have to believe in yourself or nobody else will believe it. So seeing those things if you don't have that support system, will help you. And just knowing that there's people like them who are going through what they're going through, and that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like I said, in college, seeing a lot of the girls come through the rugby program at UNC, a lot of them didn't have the support of their family, because it was a sport that it wasn't normal for females to be playing, because it was rough and it wasn't typical for a woman to play that type of sport, especially because it's exactly the same as the men's side, where we're tackling and the ball's the same size, field's the same size, everything's the same. So they didn't have that support system, and watching them not have that. And also in college, you have all different body sizes and different types of people coming into the program and still being able to be successful. Without the support and some of that confidence that they needed, but they found it in the sport. And I think that's one of the amazing things about rugby, is that it brings so many different types of people, body sizes, color, all together. And it makes you a better person and shows you what other people are going through, and allows you to help people that may not have had the things that you had. So being in that type of environment where I'm surrounded around people that I probably wouldn't have put myself around if it wasn't for rugby, and now most of those people being my family now, and just how much they support me now, and now I can support them in different types of ways because of where I'm at today. Like, that's awesome. And even on the sevens team now, like, you have girls of different body sizes, and everybody is important to the one team and goal, because you may have the bigger girls, the stronger girls who have one job, and then you have the smaller girls who have another job, and then you have the taller, faster girls who have one job. Everybody can contribute. And to go into an environment like that where you feel needed, that's really all the support that you need, is to be around people who aren't like you, and may not come from where you come from, but still support you regardless, even if they just met you that week. Just rugby just brings that type of vibe and feeling, so it's amazing.
Yeah, no, you mentioned there the different body types that you need in rugby, and it's clearly obvious because you all have different roles, and especially in the 15s, where you got twice as many players. By the way, did you watch any of the Six Nations this weekend?
I did not. I have a chance. Okay, awesome.
It was a fantastic game against France. I say, being an expat, we won 41-26 it was. It was a fantastic game, Naya. You missed a real sizzler there, beating France.
Yeah, I was beaching and swimming with dolphins.
You had other things on your mind. But, you watch the selection of players on the pitch and just how diverse those body shapes and sizes are, because you all play a different role. And I think that really does send out a message, because I know I've talked to people older than me who never watched women playing rugby growing up, right? That just wasn't available. They, older generations didn't have that. They didn't have, it's what you can't be, what you can't see, right? They never saw it. They only ever saw men playing rugby, and I've had reactions to to women playing rugby now that, oh my goodness, that's not a game for women, and it's because it's not something that they identified with. And my response always is, of course, oh well, you should see women playing rugby. And hopefully I'm changing a few minds with people that haven't been watching before, because they really should play. But the importance to believe in your own body, in the whatever it is, size or shape, color, it really doesn't matter, because rugby is so all-encompassing. It's so inclusive of body types.
Yeah, there's not one image of a rugby player.
No,
it's a huge span, which is amazing, because in a lot of sports you don't have that.
Exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't have that, say, in soccer.
Or
you
cheerleading,
and track and field. The track part of the field is different, of course, but track,
Yeah.
tennis, netball, you could just go on. There's just
Swimming. Yeah.
basketball, swimming, right? But it is very, very important, I think, for girls to develop the confidence from within, obviously, but also look at how, role models like you are now a role model, right? And
Hmm.
I hope by hearing you speak about this, that they will realize that it's okay. You can be whoever you are, and
Yeah.
you can develop into whoever you want to be. Are there any other messages that you would like to send to anyone that's listening who wants to share this with their daughters, perhaps, or young women who are lacking that self-confidence in body image?
Obviously, I'm not the first professional women's athlete to talk about this. So, one of the people I think they should definitely look into is Serena Williams. I think she's dealt with the most body shaming that you can think of. And if you look at her career, she's one of the best in the world. So, to see that, if you just look at the fact that she can take all that negative energy and turn it into something amazing, she's literally one of the best athletes in the world. And she's an African American athlete at that. Like how much discrimination she's probably had to deal with is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, she's come out on top continuously. And she's beautiful, but she's muscular and she's toned and she's literally the perfect depiction of what we're talking about right now.
Yes.
And the difference is that she's in a sport that you're supposed to look more feminine. Whereas rugby, nowadays it's okay for you to look muscular, but in tennis you wear the skirts, and she just tore all those stereotypes up and just created her own image. And if there's anybody that I look up to now, it's her. So I'm sure she's went through way more than I've gone through, and she has a beautiful family now.
Yeah, she really is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to mention we've been joined by Dan McCluskey. I think, Dan, you were here last week to watch Naya, and he was saying how inclusive sport is, and he's now discovered women's rugby. And so thank you, Dan, for your comments. If you have any questions, I'm sure Naya is only too happy to answer them. So if you are watching and have any questions or comments about body image or anything really about being a professional athlete, because Naya, you've lived it, you're living the dream now.
Yeah.
and so now when you're out and about, when you're obviously on a game, or if people recognize you when you're at a venue, do you get approached by young girls asking you about how they can become a rugby player, or do they have any questions? Do you find that they're confident enough to approach you?
Mostly they're sometimes, which is weird, like a little too nervous to ask me any questions, and they just want to take pictures. But on social media, I get a lot of messages about how they think I'm inspiring and how they look up to me. And a lot of them want to know, how can I get into your position? How can I get on the USA rugby team? Because there is really no like direct way. People come into the team from all different routes. So just questions on like, how can I get faster? How can I get stronger? What do I need to do to stand out if I do get into one of these camps? So now, knowing a lot of the answers to that, like I make sure that I respond to every single person, because I would have hoped that if I was in that same position, they would do the same thing for me. And because that's kind of my role now, is to help people follow their dreams like I was able to do. So they definitely reach out to me a lot on social media, and I try to answer any questions they have and try to help them and support them in any way possible by talking to my coach about specific athletes that reach out to me and things like that. So just trying to support them 100% as I was supported by my family, because they, like you said, they may not have that.
Yeah, exactly. And as Dan has just said, women should be able to have a place to express and be their very best. And wishing you and all the women's sports great success. It's time. Well, thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
That it's great to, get that kind of feedback. As you say, social media has provided that vehicle for you to engage with your fans and followers and so on. So thank you for that, Naya. We're going to be back again next week. Did you have your topic in mind for next week already?
I think we were going to be talking about like sports transitioning.
That's right. We have two more topics, 2 more weeks in this series. So sports transitioning, because that's a big part of it. And that's something, of course, that you have personally lived through to become the rugby player you are today, but it's not where you began. So you're making rugby popular as well, we hope, Naya. And just to remind everybody, they can follow Naya on social media. Just look for Naya Tapper. I recommend the Instagram profile, because there's some great stories on Instagram with Naya. You've got quite a following there already. Do you prefer Instagram over Twitter and Facebook, Naya? Is that your vehicle of choice?
Yeah, if I had to rank them, it's probably Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Okay, all right, there you go. So follow Naya anywhere and everywhere. We'll be back next week at 12 o'clock here Eastern on Face to Face. And again, Dan says thank you very much. So he's obviously appreciated.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. So next week it's going to be about sports transitioning. And in the meanwhile, Naya is going to continue her vacation there in California. When you do get back into training, Naya, what's the next goal?
So I'll be playing for CCIG in Vegas. So I'll be just training normally with the team next week, and then the following week I'll be heading to Vegas to get ready for that tournament. So
very nice, very nice. So some warm weather over there. Well, I know you'll continue to stay fit. Are you going in the gym in the meanwhile this week? Are you just gonna keep it ticking over?
I don't know yet. I probably should, but we'll see how the week goes.
Okay, well, enjoy the vacation, and we'll circle back here in a week's time right here on Face to Face. Now, always great to catch up with you. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you, Chris.